the Western world and freedom in general, because freedom in general is essentially identical to the Western world, for better or for worse. And so an assault on the West is an assault on everything that isn't nihilistic, catastrophic, and authoritarian in its essence.
Very unpleasant, ugly, and again, evil forces can get unleashed at such a time, the spirit of revenge.
And these are thousands of Brits protesting the British government for two-tiered policing, mass migration, the death of free speech, the Islamization of England, and the unfair weaponization of the legal system to imprison journalists and activists like...
The primary problem in the UK, as in Europe, in recent years, has been the total unwillingness of the political and other classes in the UK to address deep, deep concerns of the public.
What happens when the voices of the people are drowned out by the very politicians they elected? In this eye-opening discussion, Douglas Murray unpacks the simmering frustrations of the British public, revealing the stark reality of rising immigration, economic challenges, and the growing divide between citizens and their leaders.
And some protests started peacefully at first, then some violent. A mosque was targeted nearby, and then violence started to spread out to other towns. Then Muslim communities started to arm up, in some cases literally, with people turning up with knives to defend their areas. The Conservative government that just left power, that said that they would bring migration down to the tens of thousands a year, left office with a net migration of legal migration at almost 750,000 a year, which is, by the way, completely unsustainable, but they just keep doing it anyway. The interesting thing that Tommy Robinson speaks to and has always spoken to is, what are you allowed to do about this or say about this?
This is the future of Great Britain.
Halal cash and carry, Arabic.
Well, where are we?
Halal.
If you look,
I would say we're in the Middle East.
this is my hometown. This is my hometown.
And was it always this way?
No, it wasn't, no.
So you grew up when this was a British town.
I grew up when there used to be a McDonald's there, and I
Okay.
used to come down here with my mum.
You used to have fish and chips here?
Used to have fish and chips. Look, I grew up here, mate.
Okay.
This town, look, the whole town, it's gone. The whole town's gone.
Now, if you're me, for the time being, you're allowed to write about it sometimes. You're allowed to speak about it sometimes. You're allowed to raise alarms sometimes. But if you are a Tommy Robinson character, if you grow up in Luton and you haven't had many advantages in life and you've had quite a lot of disadvantages, and you're white and working class, what are you allowed to do about this? What are you allowed to say about any of this? And the government, for decades now, has had the attitude, you're not allowed to do anything. You're not allowed to say anything. You can't do anything, because if you do, we'll call you a racist and we'll call you far right. And this has all gone on for a very long time.
All right, the patriotism is strong. What are you thinking?
Just outraged about what's going on in this country at the minute.
Because our country's falling apart.
What future are you fighting for?
For our kids, man. I'm fighting for the kids and our ancestors. What our ancestors built over hundreds of years is now being crumbled.
But the communists, mate, that's the communists over there. Them people over there are destroying our country at the end of the day.
Douglas Murray critiques the widening rift between the British public and its political class, particularly over immigration policies that have consistently defied public sentiment. For 2 decades, Britons have voted in favor of reducing immigration, yet the numbers have risen steadily, fueling frustration and a sense of betrayal. Murray underscores the economic ramifications of this disconnect, noting that a substantial portion of new jobs since 2008 has gone to individuals born outside Britain. This trend has heightened concerns about the economic opportunities available to native citizens, sparking debates over fairness and resource allocation. In addressing the broader implications, Murray argues that focusing on secondary issues without tackling the root causes will only deepen public discontent. He also observes that terms like far right are losing their sting as the political landscape grows increasingly nuanced, and public anxieties about immigration remain unresolved. This shift, he warns, reflects a failure to engage with the legitimate concerns of a population that feels unheard.
The idea that people's response to any problems in their society should be to go out and commit acts of violence is obviously insane and wrong. What we're seeing on the streets of the British cities, though, raises this question, as I say, of if the public keep saying something to the politicians and the politicians keep not just ignoring them, but insulting them, what are they allowed to do, these people? These are populations that have every single election, like the rest of the British people, for 20 years, they have voted for less immigration and been told that they'd get it. And instead, it's just gone up. They've lived through an economy since 2008 where of the jobs created by the British government, of the jobs created since 2008, 74% have gone to people who were not born in Britain. The government refuses to do what the public keep on asking for and what the government keeps on saying it'll do. It is seen to be, I think accurately, extremely lax on policing certain social cohesion issues. It's extremely eager to crack down on anyone of a Tommy Robinson type. And what material benefits have come about in the society in the last 16 years have largely gone to people who were not born in the country.
I can't, they're just one quick one. I've got the bag of clothes for prison. Where's your car? Where's your car? Where's that?
What are you being persecuted for right now?
Telling the truth and showing the public the truth. Excuse me, which media are you from?
All of them.
I'm freelance. Who are you from? Who are you from? Who are you
Independent
from?
media right here.
Who are you from, lads? Come on, you're all journalists. Who are you a journalist for? You? Mate, watch my film. Have any of you watched the film?
Is it called silence?
Yeah, do you not? Do you know what I mean? Look, this is the problem.
Are they silenced?
None of them will ever report the truth.
Will they end up like you if they say anything?
This is totally controlled media, yeah? And they know all I've done is report the truth. I've done what you should be doing, yeah? I've filled your gap because you're all failures.
Police and authorities, even when you have discovery of an imam in a mosque preaching violence, everyone is incredibly careful. Lawyers at all the newspapers and everyone else to make sure that it isn't implied that everyone who attends that mosque is somehow in favor of this. In fact, woe betide you if you did do that. You have to say it's this one person and no one else is responsible. If you don't deal with a primary problem, you get secondary problems. And if you just focus on the secondary problem, you will you'll not only not solve the primary problem, you will make it worse. Exactly what we're seeing.
I've been watching Tommy for a long time. He is a genuine working class guy. I haven't seen anyone anywhere who's been more unwavering in his commitment to reveal the atrocities of the grooming gangs in the UK, which are organized patterns of activity that are very pervasive, that are so terrible that it's almost impossible to talk about them without sounding like a conspiracy theorist. There are many things that you could accuse Tommy Robinson of, and many of those he would admit to, but the fact that he's pointed his finger at something that seriously needs to be attended to and has paid a major price for it is also not ignorable. It's like, do we expect someone who's brave enough to do that to also be perfect in every regard? That's asking a bit much, given that there's many people who, in principle, have moral characters much more unsullied than Tommy Robinson, who are cowering in silence constantly in the face of this absolute brutal atrocity.
Tommy Robinson, recognized for his anti-Islam and anti-immigration views, has been a vocal figure in British politics, founding the English Defence League. His outspokenness has not only resulted in legal repercussions, including arrests under anti-terrorism laws, contempt of court convictions, and social media bans for hate speech, but has also led to personal threats against him and his family. His family has faced serious threats, necessitating police protection and even forced relocations. The government and legal actions against him, such as imprisonment and preventing the screening of his documentary Silenced, are seen by Robinson and his supporters as attempts to silence his critique of cultural and security issues he associates with Islam and immigration in Britain.
And so we interviewed him. And what did I think of Tommy? He's very articulate. He can certainly make a case for himself. And one of the ideas that I've been working on recently, conceptually, is that imagine that now you're motivated to center the marginal at all costs. And you presume to begin with, because you're naive or corrupt, that those marginal are a community, and they're a community with something in common apart from their marginalization. Well, that's certainly the claim of the alphabet mob, for example. We're all a community. It's like, yeah, I don't think so. It doesn't look like it. It looks to me like you're a plurality united by your, what would you say, your resentment. Okay.
And narcissism.
And narcissism. Okay, so then, but here's the subtle part of the argument, let's say, because, and I think this is true. It looks to me that if you demolish the center by centering the marginal, you destroy the marginal first, not the center. Since the 1960s, since the early 1960s, under the guise of the sexual revolution, there's been an all-out assault, let's say, against the structure of marriage. And the consequence of that is that many people aren't married, but none of those people are wealthy and educated, because the wealthy and educated are just as married as they were in the early 60s. The people who aren't married are the economically marginalized, let's say, the people who are in trouble. And so that freedom that came from the removal of the patriarchal ideal, which is a burdensome thing to bear, and also a judgmental entity, let's say, single mothers aren't to be tolerated, that finger-wagging sort of morality. It's like, fair enough. Okay, now we bring the marginal to the center. Who dies first? The center? No, the marginal.
Yeah. The elite classes who almost always push for further liberalization in laws are actually the people who, if they do dabble in that themselves, are most likely to be able to be saved. After all, there's a reason that their job will probably support them if they want to go into rehab. And they will be able to pay, and maybe even their office will pay, maybe their firm will pay. Not so for the people lying on the streets of this city with absolutely no safety net. The people you bring in the most marginal case, and then yes, in the end, the marginalized become the people who suffer the most. Why is it now so completely predictable that an Olympic Games will have to open with a sort of balls-out bearded drag queen being the center of attention, and a very obese person should be the kind of like the main figure of worship in this bizarre modern cult theology? And I know you notice this, I notice this. The truth is, everybody notices this. It's absurd. It's it's kind of replacement theology, as far as I can see, and one that hasn't been thought through at all well, and doesn't work, and is hideous and ugly, and does not encourage people to aspire to anything beautiful or true. Diversity is our strength. That's another one. Diversity is our strength is possibly the main mantra of British and European societies now. And actually, again, as mantras go, is false. Diversity does bring some strengths, and it also brings some weaknesses. Diversity can bring a range of ideas, and it can bring ideas so terrible that they could destroy the society. When you hear people saying things, everybody insisting all the time, diversity is our strength, people know it's a lie. People know at the very least it's a half-truth, and they get fed up with this stuff being forced at them, because all the time they're noticing the downsides of this. And the downsides include, by the way, it can never be said enough, the change of a society when the movement is so fast and the numbers are so large and the type of diversity is so difficult. People notice that, for instance, a high-trust society of the kind that Britain used to be becomes a very low-trust society.
And then
belief
becomes poor. Yeah.
And the belief in institutions that used to characterize Britain, once all of those have delegitimized themselves, what are you left with? And then they come for the holy places, they come for your gods, they come for your temples, and people are meant to suck it up endlessly. And I've never been sure that they would.
Well, every ideal is a goal, and there's no hope without a goal. So you can sacrifice the ideal to avoid the judgment, but then you don't have a goal. And if you don't have a goal, you have no joy, you have no enthusiasm, you have no hope. And then your life truly is the kind of bitter misery. So this is what happens to Cain, right? When he kills Abel, he kills his ideal. And the first thing he says to God is, my punishment is greater than I can bear. It's like, well, why? Well, you just killed that which you most wanted to be. And so what do you do after you've done that? Well, there's no place to go. There's no place you can run to. There's no place you can avoid your fate.
Is this a wake-up call for leaders to reconnect with their citizens? Or are we witnessing an irreversible divide? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more.